As Camden National Bank celebrates 150 years of supporting local businesses, customers, and communities with their financial needs, we want to thank those who put their trust in us. You're the real reason we're celebrating this exciting milestone. And while we've grown to help more individuals and businesses, our commitment to giving back to our community remains constant. Whether it's joining in the fun at the Camden Snowball for the annual US National Toboggan Championship, or serving cookies and cocoa at Christmas by the Sea, or handing out towels following the Camden Windjammer Festival lobster crate races in the summertime, we continue to immerse ourselves in our communities. That way, those who live here know they have a true financial partner. We're thankful for the work Camden Famous is doing to shine a light on the businesses and neighbors who have contributed to shaping this Mid-Coast community and our organization.
Welcome to the Camden Famous podcast. I'm your host, April Shaw-Beaudoin, and today I am joined by my guest co-host and dear friend, Brett Haney.
Hi, April.
And we are delighted to be chatting with two of the coolest jewelers in the Mid-Coast. We have Seth Gideon from Harvest the Light and Jordan Barnett Parker from Jordan Adams Designs. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I would like to just jump in and start a little bit about both of your businesses. I've become very familiar with Seth's work as we have become very good friends over the past few years, and I've just now become very familiar with your work, Jordan, and I've had the immense pleasure and great opportunity to go out to your studio and kind of see what your work is all about. So I would love to hear it from both of your own words, what you do, your design process, what your hopes are,
Would you like to go first?
Seth, why don't you go first? How about that?
That's a loaded question. So I guess starting off, I've been making jewelry for about 22 years now. Got into it right out of high school and have had the pleasure and fortunate opportunities to work with some great people along the way. I have a little store in Rockland. What else would we name it? I like to make jewelry. I don't know.
Well, no, I think it's interesting. So you started making jewelry right kind of out of high school. And I know,
pretty much, yeah.
Jordan, you had a similar situation. You were interning with a jeweler here in Camden, right?
Very similar, yeah. In fact, a lot of our story is very similar in a lot of different ways. I really love it, and we'll find out more about that. But yes, I started also as a senior in high school. It was kind of an accident, and I just fell in love with it. And then that became the pursuit, and I think I'm here 25 years later and just pursuing it, until I can't anymore.
Can you talk to us a little bit more about what I would call like the happy accident that,
Sure. I think I've told this story a lot, but at the high school I went to, there was an early dismissal option or like a late arrival. And my parents had a restaurant since I was 11 years old, so work was just the default. And my dad didn't like the idea of me thinking about getting out of school early, so he said, why don't you take this ceramics and jewelry course? He ran diamonds in the Diamond District when he was young. We're from Brooklyn, New York originally, so he just thought that would be interesting. He always had, he liked gold, he liked jewelry, and he thought, why don't you try this? So it was pretty good idea by him.
That's incredible. So
Better than having after school off.
Oh
and
my
getting
God.
into trouble.
Yeah, because
I've heard.
I definitely squeezed in enough during and after to get me in enough trouble. So yeah, it was a good outlet for sure.
Well, on the flip side, Seth, talk to us rather about how you got inspired to get into jewelry around the same time in your life.
Yeah. So was a senior in high school in Belfast, and had been painting kind of my whole way through my younger life. Realized I didn't want to go to school and or become a painter. It's kind of stressed me out, like the self-starter part of it, being 18 and all of that. So my mom suggested, since we had moved out to Maine, she started like buying and selling like lightly antique jewelry, and I always loved looking at it because it was so beautiful in detail and small and like absolutely opposite of the stuff I was working on at the time. So her suggesting that kind of turned into like the realization that this is actually seems like would be really fun, challenging, and then like a great opportunity to be able to go learn a craft, get a job, and possibly like work for somebody for the rest of my life, and or learn enough and want to do it on my own.
Yeah.
And so, so far it's been, very kind and generous. And I feel like probably that's, when with us linking up, it's like having the conversation and like the mutual respect of the way that we both like approach our craft kind of probably comes from starting right off the bat and then just like really taking it seriously.
Yeah. Talk to me about the education that it requires to become a jeweler or a gemologist. I know, Jordan, for example, you learned German and you moved to Germany to study with the masters. I mean,
did.
that's pretty intense.
It is, and that's also how we're tied again a little bit. Well, I'll let you tell your side.
Go for it.
But so when we graduated from high school, the options were extremely limited, and in America, almost non-existent. There was a new startup school happening in San Francisco by a man named Alan Revere, and he had studied in Germany and was bringing back a lot of those like very ancient techniques and methods of teaching. But it was just starting up at that time. So I had a coworker at Michael Good Designs who was a German master goldsmith, and
you were interning with Michael Good.
I was doing an apprenticeship, a classic European style apprenticeship. And when I saw the skill that this goldsmith had, I knew, hey, that's something that I would like to procure. I would like to do this, as well as Michael sent all of his complex stone setting at the time to Germany to be done. So in my idea, I said, I want to build this portfolio of skills, and what better place to do it than like the mecca of jewelry making. In fact, Pforzheim, the town in Germany that I went to, is called the Goldstadt, which means the Golden City. So it was, for the longest time, the center of jewelry manufacturing in the world. And so that's why I decided to go there at 22, which you can say those things at 22 without knowing language. I'm just going to go. And I just did that, actually. So, yeah.
Incredible.
And it's amazing. And I think you told me before that they only accept 12 students a year.
There's a few different levels, and each level of class leading up to the master class has very small admission numbers. And for the master class,
even more different 20 years ago.
Yeah. Oh my. Yes, that's true. I keep having to put that in the context
because it's a little bit different now. With the way that everything's grown.
It is much different.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. And so you had to be juried in to be able to take the testing and show them that you were able to go in. So I think it was like 700 people applied to get into the class, and then there was 12 of us and 11 women and one man and myself. So that was which it was always an interesting response from people. Some people, wow, this is the greatest thing, and it was great, and I love them, and I survived because of them. But I also became a mediator. It was a very competitive environment, so it was interesting.
Schools in general where arts are involved, I have found are pretty competitive environments.
It was, because there were also industry given prizes. Like, so you make a masterpiece, you have 120 hours to do that. I was telling you the other day. But after that, because there's such a heavy industrial presence in Pforzheim, there are different prestigious honors that are awarded on you for like the rendering of your drawing by hand, of the masterpiece, the actual masterpiece itself. And so the competition for those is very high, and the stress levels are compounded because you're doing testing for 8 months straight. So it's just it's a furnace. It is very difficult. And as someone who wasn't a native speaker, for the first time, I really relied on my classmates to study and understand the material, because it was just so vast.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry to dominate that, but
no, totally fine.
One of the things that I think is so interesting about both of your stories is that you spent a lot of time growing up here in the Mid-Coast, and then you went away, and now you're back.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear more about why you're back. What is so compelling about the Mid-Coast that you decided to stay here or come back?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we moved out here in the 90s, and I went to school in Belfast. We moved from Arizona, went to Belfast High School, the glorious class of 2000. Yeah, and it kind of just changed my life. Growing up in the Sonoran Desert is an amazing, magical place, but at the same time, coming here, it's like was unreal. You know what I mean? So got to get through high school, graduated 2000, stuck around for about a year, left, got into my jewelry career, and always like in the back of my mind was like, it would be amazing to come back here just because it's such a great place. It's such a creative, like inspiring place. That it just kind of got put on the back burner, and just went forward with the career stuff and let that take me wherever until I found my wife, and she was like, came from San Diego to Arizona and was like, I don't want to be here. Let's leave. And I was like, I'll go anywhere. I literally sit at this bench and look out a window as long as it looks pretty outside. Like, cool. And Maine popped up, and we came and visited, and she was into it. And so, that kind of subconscious goal got realized, which I feel like is an interesting thing in general. Like, the manifesting of things, or like having these energies go towards stuff is like one of those times in life where it's like, oh yeah, that kind of actually does happen in a particular way,
Right.
So to try to remember that there is energy behind thoughts.
We were just talking with the Bay Chamber and with the Midcoast Community Chorus, and we were also talking about the energy of this area and how it really does draw, so many artists from across so many different mediums. And I asked them this, and I'm going to ask you this: what do you think that is, or why that is?
Well, so I didn't think I would end up back in Maine, and
Okay.
that's not because I don't think it's an amazing place. But every day I kind of force myself to look around and appreciate it, because this is a very unique place. I mean, I think, we've been around, I've been around the United States, I've been around the world, but we're in a unique microcosm here. I mean, we're on the coast, we have mountains, there's a plethora of bodies of water inland, there's almost everything you could possibly want in one area as far as like the physical environment. And there's also privacy for the moment. And you've been to where I live. It's not remote, but it's tucked away, and you have the freedom to do what you want.
Easy to focus.
And yeah, it is easy to focus. There are difficulties that come with it, but I think that if you can really step away from the flow of the world and look at the environment, like, this is a very calming and healing and, I don't know, rejuvenating place if you're open to it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that. I feel like I see there's a natural element to both your works that I find really fascinating, and I think they tap into nature in different ways. So I would love to know, like, where you go for inspiration, or if you're feeling like you're a little burnt out, like what kind of practices do you do to kind of reinvigorate your creativity and to spark that again?
That's a tough question for me, because I feel like as a practice of like absorbing the things around me, it's something that I've always been really focused on, even from, doing like painting or doing whatever, like allowing the people around me to affect me and like, or allowing the environment to affect me and embracing that kind of thing. And then just like not trying to control it and just like allowing it to kind of churn and then come out. And for that, I feel like pretty fortunate that I don't ever really find myself like thinking about trying to be inspired.
Okay.
So
it's just
kind of like something that's like a constant flow that's happening, which I feel like is I feel really fortunate.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And then, but I mean, sometimes I guess, and I've been in places where it's not, and then you just don't worry about it and like do other stuff for a little bit,
Yeah.
And then, but I think, at least for me, thinking about it less helps it more, I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it does. It does. Yeah.
Be creative now.
Now.
Yes, right now.
And trusting the process, you know what I mean? I guess that's the big part of it, is that we've done it for so long that the craft is there, that like and so everything else, just like trust it and do work. And then all of a sudden you'll get to look back and step back and be like, oh, that's me, instead of trying to worry about it too much.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that you said that you're influenced by the people around you, because the people that I know that wear your jewelry feel like, myself included, like it was almost made for me or for them. And I feel like that's also a common thread that I hear through your customers.
Yeah, I think that's really important.
Yeah. And so I love hearing that you're thinking about, human interaction and it really does absorb. And then what you put out is a manifestation almost of that. I think that's really cool, Seth.
Thanks.
Yeah. But what about you, Jordan? Where do you find inspiration? What do you look for when you're, sourcing jewels or gems or,
So, I mean, to touch on what Seth said, I think it's funny because all in our minds, I think there's an age where we're stuck at, and, I still feel like I'm at the very beginning, but after 20 or 25 years of this, there are certain things that have just become second nature. And even when I'm teaching other goldsmiths, they'll want to quantify something. I go, I would love to, but I'm not going to lie. It's just after a certain amount of time, you do develop a feel for something that's
There's
indescribable.
things you can't teach.
But it's an
There's just
expert
time.
feel, and it is something special. And it's not, again, after 20, 25 years of doing that, I don't feel bad saying that because we've put in the work
And it
to
makes
do it.
that's the whole thing too, I
Yeah.
think, is it makes your work unique to you. So there's things about like the craft that you can't
Exactly.
teach because
Mhm.
it's like, this is how you do this. Now do it a bunch and you will come
Do
out.
it your way, right?
And everyone always went at the beginning, and I don't mean to diverge, but at the beginning, everybody wants to know the exact way to do it. Oh, how are you filing like this? And how are you cutting like this?
There's
But
many
that's,
ways.
it's the 10,000 repetitions, which is the journey that allows you to then find your way.
Mm.
My
yeah.
way isn't your way.
Yeah.
And so that's the beauty in it. And just like you were speaking to, there are some people, all of us, we take in the world, we let it mix around, and then we let it flow back into the world. Those of us that are lucky to do it. And that's how you can see the fingerprint of the person that's been working,
Mhm.
and that's, so that's its own thing. I didn't mean to diverge, but inspiration for me is very simple. I like very shiny things. I like very vivid, bright things. I think, like I've said before, like if you want to eat it, that's a good sign to me. Like if I see a gemstone
great.
and I want to pop it in my mouth, I'm like, I've got to get it.
I think that's why we probably
Yeah.
First of
have
all, don't.
pockets full
Yeah,
of
I
stones.
mean, it's like, it's funny because both my brother and my sister do just very serious jobs. Like they help people all the time. And I always say, like, I'm a cave person,
Mhm.
shiny, like
Mhm.
shiny fire, like
Good.
that. Those are the impulses that I've been going on. And so while that seems silly, those are what drive my work. So
Mhm.
complexity. And when you talk about inspiration from nature, when I look around and I see something that's so immaculately organized and so beautiful, that gives me inspiration to try and recreate that or to use maybe certain elements in that in
Mhm.
my own work. So I don't want to say it's divine because I think that's simplistic, but I think that there's always some higher connection that you make. And that
Mm.
I from people's own work, like when I look at Seth's work, there's a completely different dynamic between light and dark and depth and the way that plays together, which I've
Mhm.
told you a million times I love,
I appreciate
which
that.
is different from my work. But that also is an inspiration in its own because
Mhm.
you see different ways to manipulate not only the
Right.
materials, but the actual environment in which we see those pieces because
Mhm.
we're not working in a two-dimensional environment
Mm.
and every angle, every light source, everything manipulates and makes it look different. So those are my inspirations.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Well, and I think you've both touched on something that I also want to touch on, and I think it's really important for like a younger generation, any artisan or anybody that wants to do something really well, right? To be a master of your craft, it takes what, like 8 to 10,000 hours of practice,
Just takes a lot
right?
of time. I think everybody gets there at different points, but it takes a lot of time.
But it takes a lot of time and a lot of repetition, and I think that's really important. Like,
Absolutely.
for the audience to know, like when they come to your shop and they're placing an order or they're buying something, like there is thousands and thousands and thousands of hours worth of work and mastery being done, and I just think that's just really, it's beautiful, and I think it's something that people should know when they come and they want to put on the work and they they feel it.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's also why, I was so glad to see Seth came in the area. And I think some people, especially the older generation, might look at that in a weird way, like, oh, there's competition. But to me, it's not like that. There's few of us who do what we do. And the more we can cultivate that, and also the more we can share that with people,
Mhm.
because this is almost like a lost experience. We've been so caught up in box stores and convenience and cheapening things down. Like when you spoke of feeling like that piece was made for you,
Mhm.
that is what the experience is supposed to be like. It's
Mhm.
supposed to be intimate. It's supposed to be something that's made for you. It's not supposed to be something you just pick out because it's there and it fits a price point. I wish that, and I hope that in the coming years that we can inform like the Midcoast community, because we only have a limited reach,
Mhm.
but to allow them to enjoy that experience without fear of maybe it costing too much or that it's out of reach or that it's not for this type of person. Those things are all false. Both Seth and I can give people experiences that they would not experience anywhere else. And I know experience is general, but it's just different when someone listens to you and makes something for you and you can go back to them and they care. And I know that Seth, just like myself, it's just like alloying metal. We have to put a little bit of ourselves into every piece. That's just the way it works. Like that's not a kitschy catchphrase. It just is part of the process. And when a machine stamps something out, it can be beautiful, but do you feel that resonance? Is that
Right,
warmth there?
right.
Do you look at it and know that that's been made for the contours of your body, you know?
Right. Yeah. That's also something that I've learned from you, Seth, is that like the commodification of jewelry. And when you go to say Cartier or Tiffany and you want to buy that piece, it's mass produced, right? So it does lack that human touch. And while I think there is maybe a historical significance around the name, I have found in my own personal collecting, I would rather own and be a part of something that was made for me, or there was more
Yeah.
intentional thought behind it rather than just mass producing for a big profit.
And well, that's why I guess I think when I talk about creating a lot, I talk about intention, right? And like the intention is there. And even when you say something about Cartier or Tiffany, like they have masterworks that are done by like incredible artists that are in a different level, and their intention is there. But also, for the things that you go and find in the store, that there's 10,000 of them, there's intention there, but that intention is like a commodity, and that's not to diminish that as what it is, because there's a place for all of that, but it's just different than what we do. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's, I think, too, a lot of like with the kind of the education that comes along with it is like, yes, there's this, and then there's this. There's different things that exist within the same world, and the intentions are very different. So they have like different purposes,
Yeah. And I feel like as the wearer, you just feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yes, I think so too. And it's also scary. And when I say education, I just want to clarify how I mean that. Not in the way that like, we need to educate people, like from a high point. It's that I have helped, over 25 years, I don't know how many people I have guided through a wedding, including my own. And from the experience of helping people for decades, and from people who have no money at all, like a former athlete of mine who I coached in middle school, who all of a sudden is a man and is having a baby and wants to buy an engagement ring, but has absolutely no money, to people who have, all kinds of money. It's scary. I couldn't imagine buying jewelry. It's what I do for a profession, and I put myself in my customers' shoes every time. And it is scary. There's so much to know. There's so many ways that you could be taken advantage of. And when I say educate, that's what I mean, is to just lift people up, because even if they don't come to me, I want them to be empowered to make decisions that are beneficial for them in the larger jewelry community. That's, as long as they're going to somebody who's making it for them, that's what makes me happy,
One of the things that I've learned a lot about from talking to the two of you over the past year is that it's not just people with a lot of disposable income that can come to you. And they don't also need to be very educated about jewelry to come talk to you and say, I want something special that means this for this occasion. So I think I had this fear all these years that I would be judged because I don't know the difference between all the different metals and gemstones and the way that something is designed, and that you would think I was stupid, and then it would be a terrible experience. So that made it a lot easier to go into a big box store. So I'm glad to really emphasize that for our listeners. And if you want to expand on that.
I spent a long time in the retail industry. And again, everything we say, there's levels for everything. Everybody produces jewelry on their own level, and they're all doing it from their heart. And none of these stores are doing anything that's like with malice. But when you go into a retail jewelry store, you should ask yourself, where is this information coming from? And a lot of times it's just coming from the person before. And I understand that, I worked as a cook for a long time, and I was trained classically. And when you work with people who just cook, you see that there's a certain lack of finesse and of knowledge. You can make things work operationally on a certain level, but that's not the same as somebody who has studied from like the molecule up. And so there's that difference, and it doesn't make anyone better than not, but I think everybody should be aware what the environment is that you're going into. And if you're feeling pressured, or if people are telling you things that don't make sense, like, it's okay to get a second opinion. And a lot of the things that the industry steers people towards, or they'll say like, 14 karat gold is the strongest gold. You can't use 18 karat. You can't use 22 karat. It's too soft. That's not true. My favorite jewelry is in 22 and 24 karat. The problem is that it's not profitable on a large scale for them to use pure gold, because if they dilute it with other materials that are cheap, silver and copper, to make 14 karat, their spread is just huge, so they can make more money. So that's what's driving the whole industry. And like Seth said, there's nothing wrong with creating something for sale, but that is what we call a product. And personally, I don't create products, and I know Seth doesn't, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that's what you will find in a retail store, a product that has been engineered to be the most profitable for the person selling it, the most lightweight. You're going to find that like most rings are hollow. There's not enough material on them to even work on if they fall into disrepair. And the markup is so huge that the person's left with something that has such a small fraction of the value of what they paid that it can turn into like a really sad experience sometimes. Right. And that's why, not only do I like my jewelry to be more substantial, even when it's dainty, if someone's paying for something valuable, I want them to have that material. I want them to have the gold. I want them to have this, not just, the air of goldique. You know what I mean?
Right. You hit on something interesting about the experience, and like when you're in the store and the person that you're working with, they may not know everything about anything really that they're trying to sell. They're just, working for their commission,
job,
right?
Yeah. And doing their best.
Right? And there really is nothing wrong with anybody that's doing their best at their job. However, they're not the ones making it, and so I think you guys can just
makes it a little bit
speak
more
to the experience a little bit better,
And I think that like what you said about being nervous of going into a place based on like, feeling like I'm going to be judged because I don't know, or this and that and the other thing. Like, it's always a tough one because it's like, obviously I couldn't say, you can go into any place anywhere and not be that way. But like the more you as a person conquer those fears, it makes you more powerful. So like, don't ever feel like you should be worried about somebody that's providing a service judging you. If they are, then just don't go back.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you go, you never know what you're going to miss by having the fear of somebody else trying to make you feel bad.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
well, and beyond even fear, I think there's sometimes just a misconception, like, quite famously, when you opened your shop, we were invited to your opening party. And I said to Will, my partner, hey, we should go to this jewelry store opening. And he was like, why we would want to go to a jewelry store opening? And I was like, no, you should see this work. And then when we got there and we realized, it's so much more than just a jewelry store. It's a true artist space.
Yeah.
I think there's at least 4 artists represented in your store right now. And I think, it's always changing and always moving. And so I think also like letting go of the preconceived notions of what jewelry is, or what, a jewelry store or a jewelry manufacturer looks like. I think just let it go and go in and experience something new for yourself.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely always try to want to make people or have people feel comfortable.
Yep.
One of the things that I wanted to maybe deviate from our current conversation is to talk about, you're both back here in Maine and you're both doing things for the community. You are teaching new students. You are hosting events in the summer. It's pretty much May through October.
This summer will be different. It's my 3rd season, so it's 333 is the theme of this year. And so we're going to have 3 shows, and it'll be July, August, September, and we're working on some pretty special stuff.
But there is an element, I think, in each one of your parties that you've had and ones that you're planning, that there is like a through line of community.
Oh,
right?
yeah. I mean, the reason why we started putting these, like, I guess, they would be, I guess, a party, but like get-togethers, is we live in such a great place, but also it's like as separated as it can possibly be as well, with artists that are like, hermiting out in their houses here and there. And you're like, you meet these random people in these strange encounters, and you're like, you're here, you're doing what? And you're like, you would never know. So we started trying to do these get-togethers as one, like an open space to show like, hey, don't be scared of a jewelry store. 2, to like open up the community for other people to come and get together and meet. And like, the gratification comes from when people are at these things and come back and say, hey, I met this person, didn't know they exist. Now we're doing this. And then it's like, wow, that's cool. Like, keep doing that. So that's our intention for those things, is to try to create some community, or not create, but harness the community that we already have,
Mhm.
you know, and give
Right.
people a place to come and feel comfortable being themselves and doing their thing, you know.
Well, and also artists spotlights that don't, have spotlights otherwise, or they
Mhm.
might not have their art, carried somewhere else.
Mhm.
You've given so many artists a spotlight, and I think that's also just really incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it's fun because you have food and drink and a
Yeah, and
fire
music.
sometimes.
That's
Right.
true.
Live music.
Yeah, yeah.
And pretty
Addie
things
Hamilton.
everywhere.
was-
Pretty
Yeah.
things everywhere.
I know.
It's can't miss summer events. So
Thanks.
if you're here in July, August, or September, make sure you look
Fourth
up
Friday.
Fourth Friday.
And Jordan, something that I love about what you're doing is that I feel like because when you were in high school and you were looking to, hone your craft and you really couldn't find, anybody until Michael Good kind of stepped in and really kind of raised you in a way that you're giving back in that way educationally to,
Which
young.
is something that I really also look up to. That
Oh.
he's always a person in the community. We have a small jewelry community.
Yeah.
I mean, it's vast, but it's also kind of small. And that you definitely are the person that goes out of their way to help, like teach, and is a father of the craft, which is pretty rad.
My
A grandfather,
that's
soon to be
godfather.
grandfather of the
That's
craft.
so crazy. Well, yeah, I mean, I was very fortunate. It was difficult, but I think it's important to recognize, like you don't do anything on your own and certain people come into your life. So from the beginning, education has been important to me, but it's very difficult for me to see someone who's just starting out and not reach out to them and show some kind of support. So I know it's silly little things like I'll see somebody doing like a waffle on Instagram and I'll always buy tickets or do little things or just messaging them and telling them what a good job they're doing and like the improvement that you're seeing and just letting them know, hey, if you ever have any questions, please let me know. Like there's,
And that's huge.
Yeah.
because it's very scary. And I think even those of us who are quote unquote established, talking to each other and realizing we're all going through the same like neurosis and psychosis and worries and joys. It's nice to know you're not alone on an island. And if I can help somebody get to where they're going a little bit faster, I want to do that because I think especially in the younger generations, the attention span and the ability to absorb what I call pain is less. And so if I can fast track them into the actual nitty gritty of doing jewelry work, I want to do that because if you're just floundering around with no guidance at the beginning, it can be very, very discouraging. And I don't like that. Yeah, I don't want people to be discouraged. I don't. I want as many people doing this as possible. I think it's super gratifying to seeing them flourish and seeing what they do with what you teach them, which is something Michael also instilled in me from the age of 17 because I said, oh, why do you teach people this? Aren't you afraid they're going to? He said, no, first of all, I've been doing this for X amount of time. And second of all, everybody's going to do something different.
And you want people to be as good as possible.
Yeah.
Like that'll only help all of us.
Rising
be
tides
better.
raise
Yeah.
all
It's
boats.
And, like,
inspirational,
that's what you were saying
Yeah.
as far as the difference with the old school kind of stuff and versus
Yeah.
him and I meeting of like, we're in the same kind of
Yeah, we love
team
what
of,
we
like,
do.
I want
Yeah.
everybody around me to be as good as possible.
Yeah.
And I'm going
Right.
to push them because I want them to push me.
Yeah. And I want everyone to do well and be happy. So, whether that's traditional forms of charity, and I'm not saying that education is charity, but there's ways for all of us to make a difference in our lives and other people's lives. And I think that you should find those little like nooks and crannies to get that in there. And it doesn't have to be something grandiose, but a small gesture for you may change somebody's life completely. And that has happened. And people have done that for me. I want to do that for people. Like I'm talking with the Camden Adult Ed program. I'm trying to find some time to teach a jewelry class there for them because they haven't been able to do one in a while. But yeah, I think we all try and help people. And it's the same. There's projects we make money on, and then there's projects we do because we have a skill and somebody's in need of something during a special time and we can help them. And that's also something that I think that
That's
as
the great
human
thing
beings,
about also being able to make what we sell is that we get to decide those things. It's not like a bottom line. It's like we are the bottom line.
I mean, there is a bottom line with,
Well,
with the way materials
but you know
are,
what I mean.
But we're creative and we have enough skill where we can make whatever you want come to life in some way. And it may not be with the most expensive materials, but that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter at that point. I mean, if you want something that's representative, something that's special to you, something that's meaningful, the materials really are secondary.
One thing I would love for you both to talk about is what is it like to work with you? If someone comes in and they have an idea of, hey, I want to give my wife a present?
I think that's a funny question. Like, what do I think people think when they work with me? Well,
Confetti comes out of my
maybe the better question, or not a better question, a
Yeah.
rephrase
No, I'm
is,
just kidding.
what could a customer expect when they're coming into your shop to work with you?
Please,
You know,
by all means.
Okay. So they can expect more information than they expected. I'll just be candid
Can
about
confirm.
that. Yeah. And that's just because I want everybody to be educated and to feel as we're all on as even of a plane as possible. And also because after working in retail for so long, I never liked selling to people. It's not something I ever actively did. And I don't like going to any kind of store and having sales approach me. So I look at myself like a facilitator or a problem solver. People come to me because they want something or they need something. And so I get their information, I read into them a little bit, and then I give them options. And so what you can expect with me is somebody who's just going to listen, who has a level of expertise in what we're doing, and that I can guide you to exactly what you want within the constraints of your budget, but also that I could probably extract something out of you design-wise that you did not expect. You know, if that makes sense.
It does.
great.
Same. Except just a little better.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I mean, but to be quite honest, yeah, very similar. It's kind of like, process with me. I always try to take the time to know somebody, learn things about them.
Yeah.
It's the learning process always. Design and creating something for somebody. It's like, that's been one of the most gratifying things, I think, is like going through process with people of either them learning new things about their partner that they never even knew because they hadn't thought about before. And then me learning things about them, which makes me then learn things about myself. The connection that you get with people when you create something for them is like a really, really special thing.
Intimate.
Yeah,
Right.
it's really intimate.
I always
and
describe
it's
it as
incredibly
intimate,
important.
yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's like, it's a tough question because it's one of those things that I don't really think about ever. You know what I mean? I think as like, I guess that's like the exciting thing to like, as somebody who's interested in my work or his work, is to like, you get to go find that out and explore for yourself. And I think that every situation is going to be different, for every person. So, I can say that I'm going to try to be nice and pleasant on most days. Yeah. But other than that, I think that it's kind of like, it's a different thing for every person, I want, I always try to make people feel comfortable.
How long does it usually take? I mean, I'm sure it depends on the project.
Long time.
Very long time.
Lots of time. No.
I'm still working on my first project.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think everything is different a little bit. It can vary. I have pieces in my store that, are 10 hours. I have pieces that are 180 hours.
Yeah.
So it's like, it just depends,
Or 1,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Or many, and that's just actually physically sitting there working on it. That's not like the
Conceptual.
the many hours and nights of unsleeping building things in your mind. So then when you sit down, you actually can maybe do it properly.
Yeah.
Or hoping, like even at this, it's funny. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Please.
But even at this stage, and this is also why it's so different. Like we will never give birth to anything, but we give birth to pieces. And I'm not trying to speak for Seth, but when we bring something into the world, it's very important. It's condition and duration. So that's also a huge difference between going somewhere else and going to somebody who makes it, because we want that to be pristine all the time. Like that's a very important thing. There are some things that Seth and I can do in hours, like that we could have done for you in an afternoon or in 2 or 3 days, even engagement rings. It just depends on the complexity and also sourcing materials, but it can be very quick or it can take 6 months to a year. It depends on what your goals are.
But what I've learned also is that when you can do something quickly, that also has hours and hours of mastery behind it.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So
I
you
mean,
can't actually quantify.
No.
It only
No.
took me an hour because it took you 3 years to learn that skill,
For
right?
sure.
So
I think that is with everything, right?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's also with teaching is something that is good because it keeps in perspective is when you, and mostly professionals are the people I teach. So they're very adept at what they do. but I'll demonstrate something to them beginning to end, and I'll get it done 10 or 15 minutes. And for the next 10 hours, they will struggle to get 50% of that done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not saying, oh, I'm so good, but
That's what
it just accumulates and happens.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens after time. And so what we can do in a certain amount of time is different than someone else. And it's reflected that way in prices too. And I do a lot of like repair work for stores around in Maine and the country. And yeah, that's just the way things are determined. We can do a lot. If we want to act like machines, which we're capable of, we can really pump out quite a lot. But that's not usually what I'm going for.
Yeah, but I also think, I guess a quick answer too, though, is like a lot of times as for the business portion of the conversation of like, if you come in and you're like, oh, I want an engagement ring, right? And it's something that I usually tell people, depending on how busy my schedule is versus what their schedule is, obviously, if they're like, oh my gosh, I forgot, or we have something really important coming up and it's like within reason, which is, a month or 2 months. Because the process of sitting making the jewelry, especially an engagement ring, it's not the most time consuming piece you're going to make, but it's also not an easy process. You know what I mean? But physically sitting down, you're going to be doing, over 40 hours, 80 hours on a ring.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So, but put that in perspective, for a jeweler, it's like a half a week of work. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like I don't know about you, but like when I sit down and start working, it's like 10 hours go away and it's just like, oh, it's nighttime now. Like I gotta go.
There's momentum that, well, for me anyway, it's not like you can, if you're working on a piece, you can't just say, oh, I'm just going to do this and take a break. There is a momentum to the work and you have to. It's almost like being in surgery. Like once you're committed to it, you've got to take it to a certain point.
Right.
But I would say, real quick, the finishing thought, if somebody came in and was like, oh, this is what I want, and it's probably similar with you, I'd imagine, just because of our timeline type of stuff, but in that a design, like, the design process can take for as long as or as short as possible. I usually do like 2 or 3 drawings that are kind of a variety of stuff of like maybe a wild one this way and maybe a boring one this way and maybe a middle one this way. Because then it's really easy to say, I love this, or I love this about this and this about this, and can we do that? Or they're like, I don't like any of them, let's start over. And then you're like, okay. But once that threshold's hit, I usually tell people it's like 4 to 6 weeks for an engagement ring. Okay. Unless, again, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm leaving in 2 weeks. And then it's like, why did you do this? And then make sure, make sure you can move things around and do that. But it's like one of those things. But it's usually like for engagement stuff, it's like I'd give people 4 to 6 weeks on a usual.
If the material's there and it's not like I'm trying to source something really difficult. Rare ruby or something like that that's extremely, which it happens. I mean, there's some things that somebody wants that it just takes time
to
find.
Stone for a year.
Yeah, it does. Or, pearls that are graduated of a certain quality, it's just when you get into rarity, it takes time. So things can go very quickly. It's not a recommendation to press your luck, but I will tell you that most people get their wedding rings 2 months out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, have you found that? Yeah. So like,
plan accordingly.
I don't know why I just added that anecdote, but I always find it to be interesting because after having had a wedding and planning it, it just was surprising to me because it's a decent expense and people do leave it to really like right on the line when they're exhausted financially and mentally. So it's like, don't do that.
Plan accordingly.
For yourselves. I mean, really, like I don't care. I'll whip those rings together, but for your own sanity, get those things done.
Same with Christmas and Valentine's Day.
Oh, good to know. Good to know.
You guys remember those 2 months prior?
Yeah.
If you kindly.
We're magical, but
or any other special day.
Yeah.
You are jewelers, not Santa.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, is there anything that either of you knew coming into this interview today that you're like, I really want to make sure people know this about me or about my process? And Brett, is there anything we haven't covered that you want to make sure we chat about? I have a question for all of you.
No, I think this has been a really fun conversation. I think we've touched on a lot of like really interesting points about who each of you are as artists and jewelers and the work that you create. So I'm super thrilled with the outcome. Yeah, I guess I would just mirror your question, or like, what would you want someone who doesn't know anything about you to know, having watched this, or,
I would say, at least for myself, you know, that I create with intention,
mm-hmm.
um, quality, and always wanting to make it beautiful. Like, beauty is important, and that can come in all different shapes and sizes and forms, and which is like the most exciting and exhilarating part of creating. What is beauty? What's beautiful? Like, you, as somebody that creates things, that's been a big teacher, I guess, of like creating these things and, seeing the world differently and opening up your eyes and expanding, the box that you're in order to really take in things as precious and as important as it all is around us. Those are like the foundations for like myself with making anything, really.
I guess I just want people to know I'm here. I've kind of kept myself cloistered away for many years because I did so much industry work that I didn't really have to show my face to the public. But I'm pretty settled in the area now, and I really want to see people in my community. And I want people to know that besides making like very fantastic pieces that are like high jewelry or whatever, that I do a lot of repair work, everything that a normal jewelry store could do. And that, it's very attainable and reachable, and I'm super open. And yeah, I would just like to have the opportunity to serve our community. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's the time now more than ever for people to connect and also support local, real small businesses.
Yeah.
I mean, not, 100 to 200 people. I mean, really people who have
like
put their whole lives. And yeah, I mean, Seth and I, you're always teetering on the edge of a knife. And Brett, this too. At every level, it's very difficult to run a business. And especially when you are very small, a sole proprietor, or just you and a few other people.
That as well.
Yeah,
We're all riding the razor's edge right now.
Everyone. It's difficult, and it's important to vote with your dollars. And if it's not with me, then it should be with Seth. Like people who care and people who are actually doing things for you. I think that without speaking of anything that's going on, like we just need more of that, more person-to-person interaction. And this is like one of the last bastions of humanity we have are in handmade objects. That's something that I think. There's nothing, it's not to say anything about machine made. It's beautiful, but we have been making things, scratching marks, doing, giving our interpretation of the universe since the origin of our species. Yeah. And I just want that to continue. I think it's beautiful. I think it enriches us all. I think it calms us all. I think it takes us away from maybe a physical plane that is torturous for some people and allows you to go zero gravity in a way, I want people to support each other.
And I think that brings me to say, that's what I love about April so much and Camden Famous is I feel like there is a spotlight on so many, independent small businesses.
The empowerment.
That don't maybe have like a marketing budget or, know-how. And I think that you've really given so many people a spotlight, including both of you. And I would not have known Jordan without you.
I'm very
so, I mean,
appreciative.
this is,
and it is a rising tide, I don't want anyone to capsize or sink. I want us all to do well because then it's just better that way.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's kind of great just in general with the Camden Famous and what you guys are doing is that it's the same with me, what I do. Like we're a part of a community that is, we do all kinds of different things, but at the end of the day, it's almost like we're all building empowerment. You know what I mean? Empowering the people around us and the folks that we believe in. And it's like, that's what's kind of cool and like the running theme with all of this and kind of a great thing with the community and like, especially what you guys are doing. So it's appreciated.
All right. Last question. You both know this because you're both in the book, The Insider's Guide to Mid-Coast Maine. Before we wrap up, we want to hear from each of you. What are you famous for? And Seth, we're starting with you.
Not my dance moves. Yeah, I mean, I guess again, kind of a tough question. It's like that seems like a question more for people to find out. But I will say it in the words of my wife when you guys were there. She piped up and said, famous for, knowing what people want, that or helping people discover what their piece is, and you almost kind of said it.
I'm gonna say
It's
like the exact same
the
thing.
discovery. It's like
associated-
knowing, it's having the ability to
know what you want even when you don't.
Right. To teach someone what they want.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with us having the same power.
Yeah.
It's cool with me.
Yeah.
Amazing.
If you want to build on that a little bit,
Well, yeah.
fluff it
Just
up
that we.
some,
It's.
give it some meat.
I think that's it. It's just that we have the ability to read a person, and we have such a plethora of experience to draw upon and knowledge of jewelry history and design that, yeah, more often than not, we will create something that you had no idea could even exist.
Mhm.
And I
I
think the ability maybe is even the wrong word. I think it's the willingness
Yeah.
to care.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
care to put the
But
time
also
in.
a good ability.
A fabulous ability.
Yeah.
really.
I mean, the skill set is very important. But
Mhm.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
say to people, what can you make? What can you do? And I say anything you can imagine and more. And it may sound hokey, but it is true, because just like life, we're all constrained with our experiences, and you only know what you do. And until somebody or something
Opens
brings
your
that
mind.
into your view, that doesn't exist. And so that's what I love doing, is expanding people's horizons and showing them things that just they would have never seen before.
All right. Love that. Thank you so much, both of you, for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for co-hosting, Brett.
Yeah,
You can
Brett.
find Brett online at normbega.com.
NormBegaInn.com, or at Normbega, or at Brett Haney for that matter. I mean,
Or at one of our favorite places to go on the
Right, or
mid-coast
at
and
First
hang out.
Fig or Franny's
Oh
or
my God.
And Seth, where can people find you online? Harvest dash.
Oh yeah, it is
yeah.
Harvest. It's like I have a Harvest dot for my
Instagram.
Harvest light.com, and then same thing but periods instead of
Yeah, it's
dashes,
harvest
right?
dot.
Harvest
the
dot.
dot.
Just type in Harvest
You'll
the Light
find
and
it.
I should come up, and or some other stuff that's not me. But
he's also tagged in a Camden Famous post. So
oh, yeah,
if
you can
you're
find
looking,
me in a beautiful book this summer if you're just perusing around the mid-coast.
plug.
Yes.
Or if you're listening to this podcast, you can find me here.
And Jordan, how about you?
You can also find me here, but jordanadamdesigns.com is my website. Instagram is at jordanadamdesigns. I'm on Facebook, Jordan Adam Designs. I try and keep it continuous and easy, but that is where I am. And I'm located in Lincolnville Center in Maine.
I wanted to keep it easy, but I didn't realize you could add periods when I was doing my Instagram, and then I did my website, and Ricky's like, you can't put periods in websites. And I was like, you can't? She's like, no. I was like, this is why you're in charge.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Justine with Remax Jarrett & Cohn here in Mid-Coast, Maine. Our real estate agency has 4 offices across the Mid-Coast, but more importantly, we live and work in the communities we serve. Our agents aren't just here for real estate. We're showing up for our neighbors. We support local businesses, volunteer at events, and regularly give back through fundraisers and community initiatives. This isn't just where we work, it's home, and we care about the people who make it special. Find home with Remax Jarrett & Cohn.